Okay, Derbyites, Emmys, days away. We've got to decide who's going to win Best Comedy Actor. Will it be Jim Parsons for the fourth time, what he's won 3 times in 4 years? Paul Sheehan, you seem to think so. Chris and I disagree, but you go first, and then we'll knock it on.
Well, just what you just said. He's won 3 times in 4 years. This episode is as good as, probably not any better than other ones that he's won for. I just sort of feel like he's sort of, it's his. I mean, this is his category.
That's not, it's his. What kind of a justification for your prediction is that?
That just like Chris had mentioned when we talked about comedy actress, that their categories get on a roll. In that case, Julia Dreyfus getting her 3rd, Helen Hunt, Candice Bergen having 5 apiece. You know, in this instance, I think Jim Parsons, the hottest, the most popular show on TV. Maybe it's not hot, maybe it's not cool, but it's getting 18 million people a week watching it. Not to mention in the syndication on TBS with 10 million or so watching every night. He's all over the place. Yeah, they just signed a great deal. Talk about actors are watching these episodes. They just signed a deal where each of them, Galecki, Cuoco, and him, they're all going to make $1 million a piece. Talk about actors feeling good about another actor. They're sticking it to the man. And it's a hit show, and it's nominated for Best Comedy Series. It's a well-made show. And the one that you both like, wonderful episode, heartbreaking episode, great episode, but the show it's not everyone's cup of tea. I think it's certainly either you love it or you.
Either was Extras, Paul, just a few years ago.
Extras was about actors. I'm sorry. Extras was, my God, talk about that. That was a show where an extra was the star. I mean, talk about a show. First of all, the people that are voting for this, the 60, 75, 80 actors. I mean, if they have time to vote, they're probably not working. You know, they certainly identify with the extra who's in the background, who's not sort of the star of the moment. So, but you're both talking about Ricky Gervais winning for Derek, a series that was on Netflix. And
no, extras. You're saying?
No, I'm talking about now.
No, we're talking about winning now. But in 2007, he beat Alec Baldwin, Steve Carell, Tony Shalhoub, Charlie Sheen for Extras, and it was a big upset. He didn't even think he was going to win. He didn't show up, right, Chris?
That's right.
Yeah, but it was a show about actors.
For it by really wanting this one.
Now Now he wasn't from playing an actor. He's now acting, you know, and playing this man Derek, who's, Chris. Tell us who Derek is.
He's I guess you would say, a mentally challenged worker in a older folks' home.
And yeah, maybe he's not. He's got issues. Maybe he's got. He's not
the most. I don't know exactly how to term him,
he's
but
socially awkward.
Well, he's emotionally stunted or something. Ricky likes to say he's not mentally retarded or something. You have to tread this all very carefully. He's a kind of a simple guy. Look, this is the apple in a bag of oranges. It is a red delicious apple. This is a huge surprise when you watch this episode, because it is not only masterfully written and beautifully acted. He directed this episode too, by the way.
And wrote it.
Right, exactly right. So there's something simply extraordinary about this submission, and it starts, with him falling off this bicycle. He could never ride a bike when a kid because he didn't have the father there to teach him these things. So he's in this rest home, and then suddenly near the end of his life, near the end of his father's life, he moves in there, and suddenly is forced to recognize and acknowledge a son he clearly didn't acknowledge earlier, and now he's needing this guy's help, Derek, in order to to minister to him in these final days, and that is one backstory, and then there's this date that he goes on that Derek does. And typical of comedy shows, when somebody goes on a date that's very important, this is probably maybe the only date Derek's ever had, I don't know, but nothing goes wrong. I mean, there's a couple of stupid things go wrong, but he wins. I mean, and I think that was so courageous of Gervais as a writer to let us have that satisfaction as a viewer, to have Derek have this winning episode, this thing. And then he goes back to the nursing home, and his father dies, and he gives 2 speeches to Hannah, his coworker. One is why he's happy, because his father was happy when he died. And then there's the final scene that really is going to get him this Emmy, which is where because remember, this show is done mockumentary style, and he looks into the camera and he delivers a beautifully poignant speech about, during which, by the way, you discover this man is not a simpleton at all. He's quite profound. And about there's always a second chance for everybody, and that if you haven't called your mom, he says, pick up the phone and call her now. And then at the very, very end, when his father dies, and he's carted away on the ambulance, Derek gets on that bicycle and rides it. And it's the music, the poignancy, the emotional stuff. You have to have a brick in your chest, what your heart should be, not to be bowled over by this thing.
It's a little mawkish. I'm sorry.
Oh,
you can see no, but you can see why. Maybe this show has not been a big hit in England, in Ricky's native England. I mean, it's sentimental. It's lots of things that the Brits don't particularly cotton to. I mean, the
Brits aren't voting, Paul.
No, I understand that, but it's just so interesting, isn't it? That he, you know, the English version of The Office. I mean, it got very dark. I mean, it was brutal. It was made you uncomfortable to watch. Extras was sort of a little more fun and frothy. This one is very sentimental. It was a big surprise. But Chris, had you seen the show before watching this episode, Derek? I mean,
I saw a couple of them before we interviewed him in May, and then this season was released a few days later after we interviewed him. Wow. So, and it took me a while. I was working my way to the lead, so it took me a while. I was hearing everybody say, "Oh, wait till you see Ricky Gervais's episode." And I've got to say, and sometimes you get overly hyped for something, but I was very impressed. And I'm not one to predict people in comedy when they're not funny. Everybody knows that. I've been right way more than I've been wrong on that. When people have jumped on a Laura Dern bandwagon last year or other people, I don't think I would be picking Ricky Gervais on this one if the emotional stuff was not sandwiched around that whole section with the date, which is very funny. And like Tom says, it's not funny because they're making fun of him. He makes it funny, and the girl that he's matched up with on the date is a perfect match. That's why it goes so well. And I think that whole middle section, even for me, beyond the emotional stuff, is why he's going to win.
Interesting.
Okay, and so both of you now, I mean, Jim Parsons won 3 out of 4 years. An episode very similar to the kinds he's won for before. Sheldon Gets Drunk. I mean, that's won him two of his 3 Emmys.
Yeah, I mean, he gets drunk for like 5 seconds here, but no, he does. It's true. I know, but let's talk about some of these other contenders here. Louis C.K. Louis submitted the episode where he is asked by Jerry Seinfeld to go on this fundraiser and introduce him, and everything goes wrong, and he ends up in bed with a supermodel, and he accidentally punches her, and all that. It's just not the best Louis. It's a great, hilarious episode, but he's so unsympathetic. It's just whoa.
Last year we were all on that Louis C.K. bandwagon. Maybe Chris didn't jump on it, but so that's what it makes me wary of Ricky Gervais. Is he this year's Louis C.K.?
No, he's very likable. I see.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't have. I had Parsons winning last year too. This Louis C.K. episode was just painful. I don't like to rip apart. The biggest problem for me with the whole episode, he's a professional comedian. Most episodes when you see him on stage, he knows what he's doing. He's good at his job. And here he just is the worst comedian in the world all of a sudden. He doesn't know how to show up on time. He doesn't know how to show up dressed right. He's awful on stage. It's like totally opposite of any other version of him we've seen. I didn't even smile once through this episode.
Oh, but we all have those days. Listen, anyone that goes back and looks at my Emmy predictions last year will know we all have those days where nothing goes right for us. So when I got 25% or whatever it was. So, I don't think... I think there's something that's nice about it. It's nice to see somebody having a less than perfect moment. It's especially in something from Hollywood, where it's not everyone's not blow dried. Now, speaking of somebody who's having a less than perfect day, William H. Macy got in this category this year for the first time because they switched Shameless. They realized it's a comedy, not a drama. They move it over to comedy. There's William H. Macy. The Emmys love him, guys. I mean, are we underestimating him?
This episode really throws me because I hated it. And I can't, he's in very little of it, by the way. He's in the hospital, and there's a couple very, very unlikable scenes in the beginning. But the whole thing is the finale, where he gets out of the hospital and he's wheeled out along the frozen shore of Lake Michigan with a whiskey bottle, and he gets out of the chair and he has this shout at God. You didn't get me. I'm still standing, you dumbass, and whatever he says, and he's really lashing out at the divine. It's effective. It's very short. I think a lot of other people think more of it than I do. Chris, because some of our other editors really think this is great and thinks he can win. I don't.
I think the reason that some of us are giving it serious thought is not the first 45 minutes or whatever. Like you say, he's not in it a ton, although they never get away from him for long. He's always sprinkled throughout. It is that final scene, and after we saw Bobby Cannavale win for a similar scene last year, you know, Macy has got to be probably the most respected actor, just as an actor, out of these six. It's possible. I think Cannavale and anybody in a supporting or guest race gets a little more leniency on. He didn't have but 2 or 3 scenes last year, but I think you get more leniency when you're supporting in that regard. If I was a voter, I'd be going, well, that is a really good scene, but you're not. Are you really a lead in this episode? I think I would penalize a little for that.
And I feel that in this instance, in the comedy race, we talked about in the actress side, length matter, size matters. It hurts him. He's in. It's an hour-long show, not a half hour, and the fact that he doesn't dominate it, I think your attention flags, and you are waiting for him to come back, and you do get the nice payoff at the end. But yeah, and it's not. I don't know if it's a show that is sort of being buzzed about. How many people are watching it? Of these voters, that is this their introduction to it, perhaps, and it's not necessarily a great calling card, I think, for William H. Macy. Now, but I would disagree with you, Chris, about in terms of the quality of the acting, because I think Don Cheadle is a very well-respected actor, and he's gotten another nomination for House of Lies. That I think he's as well-respected in the industry as William H. Macy.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, he is. Shameless is like Shakespeare compared to House of Lies, though.
What is
that show is hard to watch.
Wow. People, I want everyone to. This is Chris Beachum in a new. I think he's been watching the Breaking Bad marathon this weekend. This is Chris Beachum uncensored. I mean.
Well, this category has the most. It has 3 just for me unwatchable. Not to say that I don't normally like the people, but I will say the one person we haven't talked about that I've got in third. I was very impressed with Matt LeBlanc. And I'm not a regular episodes viewer, but we talked earlier about somebody, Gervais winning years ago for playing an actor. Of course, he's playing an actor named Matt LeBlanc, so I don't know that helps him overall. But his little rant against British actors taking all the American parts, that might gather a few second and third place votes
among actors who are voting. Yeah.
Yeah, and then back we've talked about in each of our Slugfest today as we've gone through the lead categories, that voting. It matters. The total score matters. It's like golf. The lowest score wins. They rank all 6 actors. So if you've got a whole camp that's Parsons #1 and a whole camp of Gervais #1, I mean, if LeBlanc's got everyone's second place vote, he's got the lowest score. Because I think the people that go for Parsons and that ilk aren't going to embrace Ricky Gervais and vice versa. I think the Ricky Gervais people would probably go with Don Cheadle. And you can see Matt LeBlanc being in the middle for both.
Or if you follow our odds, I think it's really a true 2-person race, Parsons, Gervais, you might vote one. If you're voting for one in first, you might vote the other one really low.
I don't know how aware Emmy voters are, though, of the import of 1 through 6. I don't know if they vote strategically.
I think more are aware than we realize. I get that sense when I talk to people. I don't know when you both talk to people. Of course, we don't know who's going to be on a given panel. But again, it only takes 4 or 5 people to have that kind of mentality.
The strategic voting element of it. So, well, certainly now in terms of just, it's a very small number, but boy, oh boy, I mean, Ricky Gervais, if he could, I mean, he'd be ringing every doorbell in Hollywood. I mean, this is a guy that he knows how to campaign. He talked to us, you know, in advance of nominations. He chatted again once he got the nomination. I mean, Tom, how much does that matter at the Emmys, this retail politicking?
Oh, it has some effect. I don't think it has a profound effect, but I think Ricky is just the happy warrior here. He loves being in the game. He's pulled off a surprise in the past. We know he's within striking distance of pulling it off this time, whether he does or not. He's got the goods. And in fact, he has the best performance here of these 6 contenders. There's no doubt that if you honestly watch all 6, one of these is going to knock your block off, and it's called Derek. And it's a nice surprise if you don't know the show. I'm not... You know, I think this is such an extraordinary episode of this show that it is a great calling card for the series, and of course it was very brave for Netflix to pick it up. I don't know, and Ricky's a devil. You love to just root for the underdog, and he's the classic underdog here. I don't know.
Yeah, an underdog. This is his 21st Emmy nomination. I don't think we can discount that. I mean, this is a guy the TV Academy loves. 21 nominations for
He's only won twice. He won, of course, for Extras, and he won as a co-producer of The Office when it won for Best Comedy Series. But you know, if you're betting money in this race, go for Parsons because he probably is everybody's 1, 2, 3 vote somewhere up there. Ricky's either going to be at the top of the ballot or probably down below if they don't watch the episodes. But you know, it's our job as pundits sometimes to go out on limbs, and I think this is a pretty interesting one to go out on.
I think also on Parsons, and I said this 3 years ago about Bryan Cranston. He had won 3 in a row, and everybody was predicting him to win a 4th. And that was the year of Damian Lewis, and Rob and I, you know, were strictly, you know, trying to go on episodes. And I said at the time, I'm not saying he can't win a 4th in a row. I'm saying with several more seasons to come, tying that kind of record, I think he's going to. History just sort of has a way of stretching that out a little bit more. And with Parsons having a guaranteed 2 to 3 more seasons on Big Bang Theory to tie this record, which if he wins a 4th, he's going to tie the all-time record. I don't think he's going to win a 4th one this year when they've got a really viable alternative. He might get that 4th next year, the next year, the next year. I don't see him winning 5 or 6 and breaking the record, so we've got to stretch this out a little bit somehow or another.
I don't know.
History's going to have a way of doing that.
They don't, Chris. I mean, honest to gosh, I have to go back and look to see who won last year. I don't think people are aware.
That's why I always preface it with, I'm not saying voters look at it that way. I'm saying when we look back in a decade and say, okay, Jim Parsons won 4 and he's tied the all-time record, he will have done it over a 10 or 11-year period and not all here at once.
You mean we're going to be here still in a decade? Oh, my gosh.
Well, I will, but I don't know about you two guys.
Oh, no, we'll be doing a version of the Golden Girls somewhere.
We will be in the old age home with Ricky Gervais as our worker there.
But I would say one of the other reasons about for Parsons, and I'm going to stick with him now, maybe until the moment I turn off the prediction center. Normal heart. I think a lot of these voters saw the normal heart. It's such a different. I mean, you're reminded that Jim Parsons is an actor. He's not just Sheldon. I mean, it's a great performance in Normal Heart, and he got an Emmy nomination for it over in the supporting category. I think he's going to lose to Matt Bomer over there, but it's the idea that they've seen him do something different. It's so different from Sheldon. And he's wonderful in the Normal Heart. And talk about he gets a great speech in the Normal Heart.
And that's the kind of project too that, you know, let's assume no voters on this panel or on that panel. Some projects, some shows are so prestige, so widely viewed that a voter on his comedy panel probably has seen that anyway.
I think
so you are right.
Yeah, more of them than not will have seen the normal.
You can't say that in every case,
No.
but I think in this kind of a case you can. That is a good argument that I hadn't thought about. I think sometimes voters are just looking for an alternative when they know that somebody's won a bunch of times.
That didn't stop them with Helen Hunt. They gave her a 4th.
But she had to wait a bunch of years to even start winning.
But then she kept
won
winning.
like her 5th and even apologized.
And deservedly, she deserved every one of those.
Who, Helen Hunt? Are you insane?
This is what it's like all the time behind the scenes at Gold Derby, everyone. This is not a show for you. This is what I have to deal with on a daily basis.
She deserves a couple of them. Nobody deserves
No, I'll give her 1. That's all she gets.
And listen, just watch Tom's head explode. And Candice Bergen deserved even more than the number that she won for Murphy Brown.
Well, she was pretty good. I don't know if she deserved more.
Come on.
I don't think she deserved any more. Hey, I'm up here on the porch in my Pennsylvania cabin. This is the firewood I have stacked here. So I just wanted to show some local color as we sign off here. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to go build a fire. It's a little chilly up here in the Poconos.
When you're that old, you feel the cold, right? It's 75.
I feel the cold. I feel the heat in this race. So basically, once again, we don't know what's going to happen, but it's a great race. It's a 2-horse race, we believe.
This and Drama Actor are really the races, I think.
Mm-hmm. Except for Drama Actress and except for the other.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you for watching, you guys. Good luck with your predictions.